Blood Up. An incident insight by Dr. Gary Morris, performed by Dr. Frans Cronje. How a congenital lung defect led to a case of pulmonary barotrauma in a young diver who was unaware of the defect's existence and who ignored warning signs after a dive. Some years ago, a family living inland went diving for a weekend at KwaZulu-Natal's coast. Both the father and son were divers. The young man, in his late teens, was a very good swimmer and had represented the provincial team in water polo. The experienced divers did 2 easy, uneventful dives on a reef that Saturday morning. Afterwards, they rested at a bed and breakfast where they were staying, and that evening went out for a meal. Soon after they had retired to their rooms, the son called on his father to say that he felt breathless and was coughing, and in fact had coughed up some blood. In the early afternoon, after the dives, the son had already felt a slight tight-chestedness and noticed that he coughed up a little bit of pinkish fluid. He lay down and it eased slightly. The tightness was still there when they went out for supper and seemed to get slightly worse during the evening. He had hoped it would ease again when he got into bed and that he would be ready for 2 more dives on the Sunday morning. When he lay down at about 9 o'clock, the coughing seemed to get worse, and he coughed up some dark red blood this time. This really worried him, so he woke his father and then called up one of the local diving doctors to see him. The fit young man was slightly out of breath, coughing, and had reduced air entry into his right chest. He was thought to have a pneumothorax or air leak in the chest cavity, and he was referred to a thoracic surgeon. A chest drain was inserted to remove the air from the chest cavity, and he was kept in the intensive care unit. A few days later he was sent home, and at a later date saw a cardiothoracic surgeon in his hometown where an operation was done to close a congenital bullous or blister on the top of his lung. He was not able to undertake further diving. This fit young swimmer had a congenital defect in his lung that made him vulnerable to barotrauma of the lungs. This condition was something that would not be picked up through a screening questionnaire or even through a routine pre-diving medical exam. He was fit and excelled in water sport. He had dived within decompression limits and had done no sudden ascents, and still had ended up with a serious condition. Why? Well, the volume changes that occur with pressure changes in diving have their effects on gas-filled cavities like the ears, sinuses and lungs. Small changes in pressure and shallow depths can cause damage to these organs, and a weakness in the tissue will increase the possibility of something being damaged. A bullous is a thin-skinned cavity on the lung surface. It is not normally dangerous and is contained by the chest wall. A person afflicted by this is typically unaware of its existence. This diver, in fact, had done several dives with no problems up to this point. As a result of having this weak spot in his lung, the pressure volume changes eventually caused pulmonary barotrauma. This occurred in diving circumstances in which one would not have expected something to go wrong, and in an individual that one would not have expected to have problems. Pulmonary barotrauma is more common in novice and inexperienced divers. It's associated with panic typically. This is probably related to factors such as lack of familiarity with equipment, not monitoring gas supply, relative unease in the water, and therefore a greater likelihood of panic ascent. The usual circumstances that result in pulmonary barotrauma are panic with an emergency ascent, or free ascents including ascents in submarine escape training, skip breathing, uncoordinated buddy breathing leading to panic or inability to gain control of a regulator and abandoning the exercise and then returning hurriedly to the surface, or apparatus difficulties such as high regulator resistance, water inhalation leading to panic or rapid ascent, and lung disorders like lung bullae. So what can we learn from an incident like this? Well, if you're breathless and coughing up blood after a dive, especially if the symptoms persist or increase, you need to do something about it. Contact Dan and seek medical help. Pay attention to your body. Even if you are fit and experienced, things can go wrong, and if you feel ill or strange, seek advice from Dan or have yourself checked out by a suitably qualified health practitioner. Fitness, and even advanced fitness, in one type of sport does not necessarily mean fitness for another. Medical examination does not necessarily exclude all potential problems. So always be aware that the human body was not designed to be at 20 meters underwater breathing compressed gas. Volume and pressure changes can bring out problems that may not show themselves up even during a good diving medical examination. Diving is often done in groups, far from home. One's personal medical problem can disrupt other people's arrangements. Often people have saved up money, traveled long distances, and now are diving in remote areas. This puts a lot of pressure on the diver not to have medical problems or to minimize and ignore danger. Health should take precedence over holiday plans and not wanting to disrupt other people's plans. So again, listen to your body, and if in doubt, seek advice or discuss your symptoms with a knowledgeable person or contact Dan. Thank you for listening to this Divers Alert Network production and for supporting Dan.